Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to review the real dangers of Yellowstone. I'll bet you thought the danger was the supervolcano under the park. The real dangers of Yellowstone are the hot springs. Yellowstone, it turns out, is among the most dangerous national parks. Deaths and injuries at Yellowstone's geysers and hot springs. Yellowstone National Park remains a wild and sometimes fearsome landscape. That's why 4 million people travel to the park every year to view untrammeled vistas, glimpse untamed bears and bison, and get close to hot gushing geysers and simmering thermal springs. But for unwary visitors, the extraordinary natural features that keep Yellowstone such an alluring place can also make it perilous. While backcountry hikers may be well aware that grizzlies and bison can be dangerous threats, Yellowstone visitors can get into serious trouble while wandering near the park's heavily visited geyser basins and other geothermal features. Deaths and injuries from geysers and geothermal water. On June 7, 2016, a Portland, Oregon resident slipped and tragically fell to his death in a hot spring near Porkchop Geyser. He and his sister illegally left the boardwalk and walked more than 200 yards in the Norris Geyser Basin when the accident happened. In June 2006, a 6-year-old Utah boy suffered serious burns after he slipped on a wet boardwalk in the Old Faithful area. The boy fell into hot water that had erupted from nearby West Triplet Geyser. He survived, but more than 20 park visitors have died, the most recent in 2016. Scalded by boiling Yellowstone waters as hot as 250 degrees Fahrenheit. Geothermal attractions are one of the most dangerous natural features in Yellowstone, but I don't sense that awareness in either visitors or employees, says Hank Heisler, the park's principal geologist. The National Park Service publishes warnings, posts signs, and maintains boardwalks where people can walk to get close to popular geyser fields. Yet every year, rangers rescue 1 or 2 visitors, frequently small children, who fall from boardwalks or wander off designated paths and punch their feet through thin earthen crust into boiling water. Yellowstone protects 10,000 or so geysers, mudpots, steam vents, and hot springs. People who got too close have been suffering burns since the first explorations of the region. During the 1870 Washburn expedition exploring the region, Truman Everts was separated from the main party for 37 days and burned his hip seeking warmth from hot springs at Heart Lake. The first fatality, most likely, was a 7-year-old Livingston, Mont, boy whose family reported he died after falling into a hot spring in 1890. Writing his 1995 book Death in Yellowstone, Park historical archivist Lee H. Whittlesey sifted through National Park Service records to identify 19 human fatalities from falling into thermal features. The victims include 7 young children who slipped away from parents, teenagers who fell through thin surface crust, fishermen who inadvertently stepped into hot springs near Yellowstone Lake, and park concession employees who illegally took hot pot swims in thermal pools. There are many risks in Yellowstone. Sometimes, despite the Park Service's warnings, people will do what they want to do. Yellowstone's a beautiful place, but it's also a very dangerous place. Especially to those who behave carelessly or recklessly. Anyone who pays attention to warnings and stays on the boardwalks should be just fine. Please subscribe, like and share.